She rushed her only son to the hospital and froze when she saw the billionaire who'd abandoned them both. The automatic doors of St. Helena Medical Center burst open as reporters pushed forward, their cameras flashing like strobe lights against the marble walls. The lobby, usually filled with quiet footsteps and whispered prayers, transformed into absolute chaos. Security guards rushed to form a barrier while hospital staff scrambled to protect patients from the sudden invasion. Above the main reception desk, a massive banner unfurled with deliberate precision, Elodie Maxwell Children's Wing. Grand opening. The gold letters caught every camera flash, every phone screen, every hungry lens searching for the perfect shot. Mia Fisher pressed her back against the wall near the emergency stairwell. Her 6-year-old son Arlo clutched against her chest. His small body shook with each labored breath, the familiar wheeze that had brought them here now competing with the deafening noise of the crowd. She'd chosen this hospital specifically because it was supposed to be quiet today, the new pediatric ward not opening until next week. But here they were, trapped between Arlo's urgent medical needs and this unexpected media circus. Then she saw him. Roman Maxwell stepped up to the makeshift podium someone had wheeled into the lobby's center. 7 years had passed since she'd last seen that face, but time had only sharpened his features, added confidence to his stance. The struggling artist she'd loved was gone, replaced by a man in a $10,000 suit whose presence commanded every eye in the room. His voice, when he spoke, carried the same warmth she remembered, but now it held something else: power, authority, the casual confidence of someone who'd learned to move mountains with his checkbook. Today marks not just the opening of a medical facility, Roman said, his words cutting through the chaos with practiced ease. The Elodie Maxwell Children's Wing represents hope for families who've been told there are no options left. Named after my late daughter, this wing will ensure no child in this city goes without care due to financial constraints. Mia's chest tightened, but not from panic. His daughter? 7 years of silence, and now she learns he had a child who died. Her mind raced through calculations, timelines, possibilities. Arlo coughed hard against her shoulder, bringing her back to the present crisis. She needed to get him to the pediatric ward, but the path was blocked by cameras, reporters, and the ghost of everything she'd tried to forget. Have you ever stood at the crossroads of your worst nightmare and your only salvation? That moment when the universe seems to mock your carefully constructed walls by placing your destruction and your rescue in the same person? Maybe you've been there, watching someone who shattered your world suddenly appear as the only one who might save it. The kind of moment where your pride battles your desperation, where old wounds bleed fresh while new ones threaten to open. Mia knew she had 2 choices. She could wait, hope the crowd dispersed before Arlo's breathing got worse, protect their anonymity and her heart from whatever seeing Roman again might mean. Or she could push through that crowd, risk him seeing her, risk the cameras catching her desperation, risk everything she'd built in these 7 years crumbling in front of the man who'd already demolished it once. But as Arlo's breathing grew more ragged, she realized choice was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Mommy," Arlo whispered, his voice barely audible above the commotion. "I can't. It hurts to breathe." That's when Roman's eyes found hers across the crowded lobby. The speech stopped mid-sentence. The billionaire philanthropist, the man who'd just pledged millions to save children, stood frozen as he stared at the woman holding a struggling child in the corner. The cameras, sensing drama, swung toward Mia. The crowd parted slightly, creating a path between them, between past and present, between hurt and help, between the woman he'd left and the child who needed air. 2 crises crashed together in that hospital lobby, a little boy whose lungs fought for every breath, and a mother whose history suddenly stood between her child and the help he needed. The private medical emergency she'd tried to handle quietly now played out under spotlights and scrutiny. The man who'd vanished from her life without explanation now controlled access to the very ward that might save her son. Money hadn't brought them together. Fate, or perhaps something crueler, had. You need to stay until the end to discover what Mia Fisher chooses in that moment. And the one thing Roman offers that his billions can't actually buy. Because sometimes the price of salvation isn't measured in dollars, but in the courage to face what broke you. To all new and returning viewers, glad you're here with Mr. Steele Rich Stories. If stories with real heart move you, join our family. Tap subscribe to Mr. Steele Rich Stories and ring that bell. Drop "I'm in the comments so I can welcome you by name. Your support means everything, and I promise to keep bringing you stories that matter. Stories that make you feel. Stories that remind us all what it means to be human. The emergency room had become their second home over the past 3 years, but Mia Fisher had turned survival into an art form. She knew exactly which parking meters near St. Helena Medical Center accepted credit cards, which were jammed on quarters, and the one blessed spot behind the pharmacy that stayed free for 20 minutes. Just enough time to grab Arlo's prescriptions. Her worn leather bag contained a carefully organized system, insurance cards in the front pocket, medical history, folder in the middle section, and the small pouch of emergency supplies she'd assembled through trial and error. 4 juice boxes, not 3 she'd learned after one 12-hour emergency. Visit left Arlo crying from hunger and the vending machines empty. Apple juice, never orange. The citrus made his throat hurt more when breathing was already hard. Goldfish crackers in individual bags because opening a large container with shaking hands meant spilling them everywhere. 2 phone chargers because the outlets near the pediatric beds were always occupied. A small notebook where she tracked every symptom, every trigger, every pattern that might help the doctors understand why her healthy, happy boy would suddenly struggle for air. The $20 bill hidden in her phone case was for the parking garage when visits ran longer than expected. She'd learned to break larger bills at the hospital coffee cart because the parking attendant booth only took exact change after midnight. These weren't things anyone taught you about having a sick child. You learned them in moments of desperation, filing away each small failure as a lesson for next time. Arlo's coloring book stayed permanently in her bag now, along with the specific set of crayons he preferred, the ones that didn't break under his grip when his hands shook from the breathing treatments. She'd memorized which nurses worked which shifts, who would let her stay past visiting hours, who would sneak Arlo extra pudding cups when the cafeteria closed. The janitor, Marcus, knew them by name now, always stopping to show Arlo card tricks while they waited for test results. Her phone contained 3 different apps for tracking medical expenses, appointments, and medication schedules. She'd negotiated payment plans with 4 different departments, knew exactly how much she could put on each credit card before hitting the limit, and had memorized the hospital's financial assistance phone number. Pride had become a luxury she couldn't afford the day Arlo's first attack sent them racing here in an ambulance she's still paying off 2 years later. But through it all, Mia kept her fear locked away where Arlo couldn't see it. When his breathing got bad, she'd count out loud with him. 1 elephant, 2 elephants, keeping her voice steady even when her hands trembled. She'd make up stories about brave knights who sometimes needed special medicine to fight dragons, never letting him see her check the clock, calculating how long they had before his symptoms typically got worse. Her panic lived in the bathroom stall where she'd escape for 3 minutes at a time, pressing her palms against her eyes, allowing herself exactly 1 minute to fall apart before washing her face and returning with a smile. The brave face, she called it in her head, the one that said everything would be fine, that this was just another bump in their road. That mummy had everything under control, even when control was the last thing she possessed. "Room 12 is ready," Nurse Tamsin called out, her voice cutting through the emergency department's controlled chaos. She'd been working in pediatric emergency for 15 years, and she recognized the Fisher family's particular brand of organized crisis. The way Mia already had Arlo's medical history pulled up on her phone, the practiced ease with which the boy raised his arm for, the blood pressure cuff, the small toy dinosaur he clutched, not for comfort but to keep his hands busy during procedures. The nebulizer mask went on without protest. Arlo knew the routine: sit still, breathe deep, let the medicine do its work. The machine hummed its familiar rhythm while Tamsin checked his oxygen levels, making small talk about the cartoon playing on the waiting room television. 92%. Not critical, but not good. She watched Mia's eyes track the numbers on the monitor, saw the slight relaxation when they climbed to 93, then 94. His regular pulmonologist is Dr. Kim, Mia said, already anticipating the questions. Last admission was 6 weeks ago. He's been on the maintenance inhaler twice daily, rescue inhaler as needed. I used it 3 times today before we came in. No fever, no signs of infection, just the sudden onset around 4 p.m. Tamsin nodded, typing notes into the computer. She'd seen hundreds of parents in this situation, but something about Mia Fisher always struck her. The woman never cried, never raised her voice, never demanded special treatment. She just quietly advocated for her son with a fierce efficiency that came from too much practice. "We're going to fix it," Mia whispered to Arlo, smoothing his dark hair back from his forehead. The same words every time, like a prayer or a promise. "We're going to fix it, and then we'll go home and have mac and cheese for dinner." Arlo nodded against the mask, his eyes already drooping from the medication and exhaustion. His breathing had steadied to a manageable wheeze, the numbers climbing steadily toward normal. 95, 96. Mia's shoulders dropped an inch with each percentage point gained. Dr. Harrison arrived 20 minutes later, reviewing Arlo's chart with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd seen too many kids struggling to breathe. She listened to his lungs, checked his throat, ran through the standard questions while Mia provided detailed answers. The nebulizer treatment continued, steam clouding the mask with each exhale. "The treatment's working," Dr. Harrison confirmed, watching the monitors. "We'll do one more round, then see if he can maintain it without support. Might want to discuss adjusting his daily medications with Dr. Kim at your follow-up." It was always the same dance: emergency treatment, stabilization, adjustment of long-term medications, hope that this time they'd found the right combination. Mia had stopped believing in permanent fixes 18 months ago. Now, she just focused on getting through each crisis, each day, each breath. 97%, Tamsin announced, marking it in the chart. "Looking much better, buddy." 7 years ago, before hospital visits and medical bills, before nebulizers and emergency inhalers, there had been a different life. Mia let herself remember it sometimes, usually in these quiet moments while machines breathed for her son. The memories came in fragments, like photographs scattered across her mind. The diner on Riverside Avenue where she'd first met Roman, rain streaming down, the windows while she waited tables through her second year of college. He'd been sitting alone in the corner booth, sketching on napkins, ordering nothing but coffee for 3 hours. When she'd finally asked him to order food or leave, he'd laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine delight at being called out. He ordered pancakes and left a $100 tip on a $12 bill, along with a portrait of her he'd drawn on a paper placemat. She kept that drawing for years, even after everything ended. It lived in a box under her bed now, along with ticket stubs from concerts they'd attended, photos from, the road trip to the coast, the spare key to his apartment he'd given her after 3 months of dating. Too fast, her friends had warned, but nothing about Roman had ever followed conventional timing. He'd been an artist then, all passion and dreams, living in a studio apartment that smelled like oil paint and possibility. She'd pose for him sometimes, sitting still while he captured something in her face she couldn't see herself. "You look like hope," he'd told her once, his hands stained with cobalt blue and cadmium yellow. Like, tomorrow might actually be better than today. They'd talk about the future while sharing Chinese takeout straight from the containers, planning a life that seemed both impossible and inevitable. He'd paint masterpieces, she'd open her own restaurant. They'd travel to Paris, learn to speak Italian, have kids who'd grow up surrounded by art and good food. Small dreams that felt enormous in his tiny apartment, their whole future mapped out between his easel and her textbooks. The last time she saw him, they'd been talking about moving in together officially. Her lease was ending. His apartment was too small for 2 people long term. "Give me 2 weeks, he'd said, kissing her forehead at her door. "I have something in the works that's going to change everything." 2 weeks turned into silence. His phone disconnected, his apartment empty when she finally used that spare key. The landlord said he'd paid off his lease and left no forwarding address. Then, 6 weeks later, she'd been sitting on her kitchen floor, holding a positive pregnancy test, making a promise to the tiny life growing inside her. "I'll never lie to you," she'd whispered to her still flat stomach. "Not even the small lies. Not even when the truth hurts. You'll always know where you stand with me. Always know you're wanted. Always know you're enough." That promise had shaped everything that came after. When Arlo asked about his father, she told him the truth, that his dad had left before knowing about him, that she didn't know why or where he went. When money was tight, she explained they needed to be careful, not because he'd done anything wrong, but because that's what families did. When he got sick, she told him exactly what the doctors said in words he could understand. No fairy tales, no false hope, just truth delivered with love. The truth had become Mia's religion after Roman left. She'd grown up in a house full of pretty lies. Her mother's working late that meant drinking at bars, her father's business trips that were moves to avoid creditors. She'd promised herself that Arlo would never have to decode her words, never have to guess what was real. "Why don't I have a dad like Jeremy?" Arlo had asked last month, referring to his best friend whose father coached their soccer team. "You have a dad," Mia had answered carefully. "He just isn't part of our lives. Sometimes adults make choices that don't make sense, but it has nothing to do with how amazing you are. Did he not want me?" The question that broke her heart every time. "He didn't know about you when he left, and I don't know what he would have chosen if he had known. That's the honest truth, baby. But I know I chose you. Every single day I choose you, and that's enough for us." It would have been easier to lie, to say his father was dead or deployed or any number of stories that would stop the questions. But lies required maintenance, constant upkeep, and eventually they crumbled. Truth might hurt, but it was stable ground to build on. This philosophy extended beyond just Arlo. When the hospital billing department called, she told them exactly what she could pay. When her boss at the restaurant asked if she could work doubles, she explained about Arlo's medical needs. When the other mothers at school gave her pitying looks, she didn't pretend everything was fine. "We're managing," she'd say. "Some days are harder than others." Now, watching Arlo's breathing return to normal, his small chest rising and falling without struggle, she thought about all the truths she carried. The truth about their finances, stretched but not broken. The truth about her fear, constant but controlled. The truth about the anger she still harbored toward Roman, valid but useless. And the newest truth, the one that had emerged in that crowded lobby, that seeing him again had cracked something open she'd thought was sealed forever. "Mommy," Arlo said softly, pulling the mask away from his face for a moment. That man in the lobby, he kept looking at us. Of course Arlo had noticed. He noticed everything, processed the world with an intelligence that sometimes startled her. She couldn't lie to him now, not when she'd built their whole relationship on truth. "I know, baby. Put your mask back on for a few more minutes." "Did you know him?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. Mia could feel the weight of the next words, knowing they would either be truth or the first lie she'd ever told her son. The monitor beeped steadily, showing 98% now. Almost normal, almost safe. "Yes," she said finally. "I knew him once, a long time ago." "Before I was born?" "Yes, before you were born." Arlo seemed to consider this, his 6-year-old mind working through the implications. But before he could ask anything else, Tamsin returned with discharge papers and instructions for follow-up care. The moment passed, but Mia knew it would return. Truth was like that, patient and persistent, waiting for its moment. The discharge papers crinkled in Mia's hands as she helped Arlo sit up, the nebulizer treatment finally complete. Through the glass partition of the emergency room, she could still hear Roman's voice carrying from the lobby, his speech reaching its crescendo. Each word felt like a stone dropped into still water, the ripples reaching her even here. The Elodie Maxwell Children's Wing will feature 32 private rooms, each equipped with state-of-the-art respiratory equipment, Roman's voice echoed through the hospital's speaker system. Someone had apparently decided to broadcast the dedication hospital-wide. No child will be turned away due to inability to pay. No parent will have to choose between their child's health and their home. Mia's hand stilled on Arlo's back. Those words, she'd said them to Roman once years ago after witnessing a family leave the emergency room because they couldn't afford the copay. Someone should fix this, she'd raged that night, pacing his tiny apartment. Children shouldn't suffer because their parents are poor. One day, he'd promised her, pulling her into his arms. One day, we'll have enough money to change things. Now he had that money. Now he was changing things. But the we had become just him, and she was one of those parents his charity would help. The irony tasted bitter in her mouth. The speech continued, but Mia focused on gathering their things, tucking Arlo, his dinosaur, into his backpack, checking that she had all their paperwork. The emergency bay had emptied somewhat. Other patients either admitted or discharged during Arlo's treatment. Through the main doors, she could see the crowd beginning to disperse. Reporters packing up their equipment, the spectacle winding down. "Ready to go home, brave knight?" she asked Arlo, keeping her voice light. He nodded, sliding off the bed with careful movements. His breathing was clear now, the treatment successful, but he always moved cautiously. After an episode, as if too much activity might trigger another attack, Mia took his hand, feeling its smallness in hers, the trust in his grip. They walked toward the exit, Mia deliberately choosing the path that would avoid the main lobby. But as they rounded the corner near the nebulizer storage area, where Tamsin was restocking supplies, Roman appeared. He'd left the podium, was walking with purposeful strides toward the pediatric wing, 2 assistants trailing behind him with tablets and folders. He stopped mid-step when he saw them. The first emotion that crossed Roman Maxwell's face was pure surprise, the kind that stripped away 7 years of success and left only the raw recognition of something unexpected. His lips parted slightly, his hand halfway to his phone frozen in mid-air. For a heartbeat, he looked exactly like the man who'd once spent hours trying to capture, the perfect shade of blue in her eyes, frustrated when his paints couldn't match reality. Then came the remembering. Mia watched it wash over him like a tide, saw his eyes track the familiar angles of her face, the way her hair still fell across her left shoulder when she was nervous. His gaze held questions and answers simultaneously, processing not just her presence but what it meant, here, now, in this place he'd built. She could see him calculating the years, perhaps wondering what had brought her here, why she looked tired in ways that had nothing to do with sleep. Finally, the ache. It settled into his features like sediment, aging him beyond his 34 years. His shoulders dropped a fraction, and his hand lowered completely, hanging useless at his side. This was the expression she'd never seen on him before. Regret mixed with something deeper, something that looked suspiciously like grief. "Mia?" Her name on his lips sounded like a question and a prayer combined. It carried the weight of their history, the ghost of promises made in the dark, the echo of laughter over morning coffee. Just her name, but it contained multitudes. His eyes shifted then, drawn by movement, and found Arlo pressed against her side. The boy looked up at the stranger with curious eyes, the same dark eyes that stared back from Roman's own face. The resemblance hit like a physical blow. Mia saw Roman process it, saw him take in the child's age, the familiar curve of his jaw. The way his hair fell across his forehead in exactly the same pattern Roman's did. The air between them became something solid, heavy with unspoken accusations and explanations. Roman's assistants had stopped a respectful distance away, clearly sensing the charged atmosphere. Other hospital staff moved around them, oblivious to the small drama playing out by the supply cart. "Is this—" Roman started, then stopped, his usual eloquence deserting him. His hand moved slightly, as if to reach toward them, then pulled back. "We were just leaving," Mia said, her voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. She tightened her grip on Arlo's hand, began to move past him. Wait, Roman said, and there was desperation in it, raw and unchecked. Please. Just wait. Nurse Tamsin appeared between them like a guardian angel in scrubs, her 15 years of experience having taught her to recognize trouble in all its forms. She'd seen custody battles play out in waiting rooms, witnessed family drama unfold, over sick beds, learned to protect her young patients from adult complications. The family can follow to the pediatric ward if they're on the approved list, she said smoothly, positioning herself slightly in front of Mia and Arlo. Her tone was professionally neutral, but her stance was protective. This young man needs to rest after his treatment. Roman's jaw tightened. He started, then stopped himself, seeming to realize that throwing his weight around wouldn't help here. I apologize. I didn't mean to intrude on medical care. The new pediatric ward is beautiful, Tamsin continued, as if he hadn't spoken, gently guiding Mia and Arlo away from the confrontation. Dr. Banerjee wanted to check Arlo one more time before discharge. Standard protocol after a respiratory episode, Mia allowed herself to be led, grateful for the intervention. Arlo looked back over his shoulder at Roman, his young mind clearly trying to piece together the strange encounter. They moved through the hospital corridors, Tamsin keeping up a steady stream of light. Chatter about the new ward's amenities, creating a buffer of normalcy around them. The Elodie Maxwell Children's Wing was everything the dedication speech had promised. Bright murals covered the walls, underwater scenes with friendly sea creatures, forests full of whimsical animals, cities made of candy and dreams. The rooms they passed had natural light streaming through large windows, parents relaxing in actual comfortable chairs. Instead of rigid plastic, children connected to machines that hummed quietly instead of beeping constantly. Dr. Priya Banerjee met them at the nurses' station, her warm smile immediately putting Arlo at ease. She was younger than most of the emergency doctors, perhaps early 30s, with kind eyes, behind stylish glasses, and an easy manner that made children trust her instinctively. "Let's just make sure those lungs are completely clear," she said to Arlo, leading them to an examination room that looked more like a playroom than medical space. Toys lined shelves, books filled a small library corner, and the examination table was shaped like a pirate ship. While she listened to Arlo's breathing, asking him about school and his favorite subjects, Mia felt her phone vibrate. "A text from an unknown number, please. 5 minutes. I need to understand." She deleted it without responding, but her hands shook slightly as she put the phone away. Dr. Banerjee finished her examination, declaring Arlo's lungs clear and his oxygen levels perfect. She high-fived him, then pulled a sticker from her coat pocket, a golden star that said, "Brave Patient," in glittering letters. As Arlo carefully placed it on his shirt, she turned to Mia with a slightly different expression. "Everything looks good," she said, then lowered her voice while Arlo explored the toy corner. "There's someone waiting in the family consultation room. He said he's connected to you both. Security cleared him, but I wanted to check with you first. You're under no obligation to see anyone you don't want to see." Mia's chest tightened. Of course Roman had found a way to position himself in their path, not aggressively, not using his ownership of the wing to force a confrontation, but simply placing himself where she'd have to make a choice. It was so like him. Even after 7 years, he understood her well enough to know. That direct pressure would make her run, but a choice would make her pause. "He said to give you this," Dr. Banerjee added, handing her a folded piece of paper, "and to tell you that he'll leave immediately if you say no. No questions, no problems." Mia unfolded the paper, recognizing Roman's handwriting immediately. It hadn't changed. Still the careful letters of someone who'd trained themselves to write beautifully after growing up with nothing beautiful around them. "I know I have no right to ask for anything. I know what leaving costs you. But seeing him, seeing what I walked away from without knowing, please, let me at least apologize properly. Let me explain, even if the explanation isn't forgiveness. 5 minutes. If you say no, I'll respect that and disappear again. But please." "Mummy, look!" Arlo called from across the room, holding up a book about dragons. "Can we read this?" The normalcy of his voice, his easy joy after such a difficult afternoon, made her decision somehow both harder and clearer. She looked at her son, Roman's son, and wondered what truth she owed him beyond what she'd already given. Did he deserve to know his father was here? Did Roman deserve to know the incredible person his son had become? "Dr. Banerjee," she said quietly, "could you stay with Arlo for a few minutes? Let him pick out a book to take home?" The doctor nodded, understanding immediately. "Take your time. We'll be here looking through our library. Arlo, want to help me pick the best books for our take-home shelf?" Mia kissed Arlo's forehead, promising to be right back. Then she walked down the hallway toward the family consultation room, each step feeling like a journey through time. Behind that door waited answers to questions she'd stopped asking years ago, explanations she'd told herself she didn't need. But more than that, behind that door waited for a choice that would affect not just her, but the small boy picking out dragon books with his doctor. Would you meet him? Or keep the past out to protect the present? She stood at the door for a long moment, hand on the handle, feeling the weight of two possible futures pressing against her palm. The family consultation room smelled like lavender and antiseptic, an attempt at comfort that didn't quite mask the medical reality. Roman stood by the window, his back to the door when Mia entered. His reflection in the glass showed a man wrestling with words he'd probably rehearsed 1,000 times in 7 years, none of them adequate for this moment. "Thank you for coming," he said without turning around. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm not sure I should have," Mia replied, keeping the small table between them as he finally faced her. The years had refined him. Gone was the stubble he'd worn like armor, replaced by clean lines and expensive grooming. But his eyes held the same intensity that had once made her believe in impossible things. "I need to tell you what happened," Roman began, then stopped, shaking his head. "No, first, I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry that expects something back, not sorry with conditions or explanations attached. Just sorry. I left you without a word, without explanation, without even the decency of a goodbye. That was cowardice, and it was cruel, and you deserved so much better." Mia remained silent, her arms crossed, not in anger, but in protection. She'd imagined this conversation countless times, but reality felt sharper than fantasy, each word cutting precise lines through her carefully constructed armor. "My father's company was in trouble," Roman continued, his voice steady, but his hands betraying him, clenching and unclenching at his sides. The board of directors, his supposed partners, were staging a hostile takeover. They came to me with an ultimatum: come back, take over, save what my father built, or watch them destroy everything and leave my mother with nothing. The life insurance, the pension, even the house. It was all tied to company stock that would have been worthless. He moved to the chair across from her, but didn't sit, gripping its back instead. "They gave me 48 hours to decide and made it clear that bringing anyone into my new life would be seen as a weakness they could exploit. They specifically mentioned you. They'd been watching, knew about us. Said a waitress girlfriend would undermine my credibility with investors. So, you chose money," Mia said flatly. "I chose my mother's security," Roman corrected, then immediately shook his head. "But yes, I chose wrong. I told myself I'd come back once things were stable, once I'd secured everything. 6 months, maybe a year. But the deeper I got into that world, the more impossible it seemed. And the longer I stayed away, the more of a betrayal coming back would be. I was a coward twice, once for leaving, once for staying gone." He finally sat, the fight seeming to drain from him. "I didn't know about Arlo. God, Mia, if I'd known, but that doesn't matter, does it? I should have been there regardless. Should have trusted you with the truth. Should have fought for us instead of folding to their pressure. Did you ever try to find me?" she asked, hating how small her voice sounded. "Every day for the first year. But you'd moved, changed your number. Your friends wouldn't tell me anything, rightfully so. I hired investigators, but when they found you, you looked happy, working at a new restaurant, living in that little blue house on Maple Street. I convinced myself that showing up would be selfish, that I'd already done enough damage. That was 3 years ago. Mia said, the timeline clicking into place. Arlo had just turned 3. He'd started having breathing problems. I was drowning in medical bills, working doubles, barely sleeping. Roman's face crumpled. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything I don't deserve, which is nothing. But now that I know about him, about our son, please, let me help. Not publicly, not for show, just let me help carry some of this weight I should have been carrying all along. Mia stood abruptly, needing distance from the raw pain in Roman's voice. She walked to the window, looking out at the city below, gathering her thoughts like armor before turning back to face him. You broke my heart, she said simply, not just by leaving, but by making me doubt everything that came before. Every I love you, every plan we made, every promise. I've spent 7 years wondering what was real and what were just pretty words from someone who could walk away without looking back. Roman started to speak, but she held up her hand. I'm not finished. Forgiveness, that's a separate conversation, maybe one we'll never have. But Arlo, our son doesn't need your guilt or your money or your headlines. He needs stability. He needs the truth. He needs people who show up and stay shown up, not grand gestures that disappear when things get complicated. She returned to her chair, leaning forward with the same intensity she used when advocating for Arlo's medical care. If you want to help, really help, then understand this. Everything goes through me first. Every decision, every interaction, every moment you might have with him needs my approval. Not because I'm punishing you, but because I'm protecting him. He's been through enough without adding a father who might vanish again to his list of challenges. I won't leave again, Roman said firmly. You don't get to just declare that and have it be true, Mia shot back. Trust is earned in small moments, not promised in grand statements. You want to help? Show up with time, not just checks. Learn his favorite books, his fears. What makes him laugh? Sit through boring school plays and little league games where he strikes out. Be there when he's sick at 3 a.m. and there's nothing to do but worry. She pulled out her phone, showing him her calendar. Color-coded chaos of medical appointments, work shifts, school events. This is our life. It's not glamorous. It's not photo ops at charity galas. It's nebulizer treatments and insurance fights and choosing between new shoes or the electric bill. Can you handle that? Can you be part of this without trying to fix it with money or influence? Roman studied the calendar, and she saw him truly understanding the weight she'd been carrying. What would showing up look like to you? Start small, Mia said. Come to his next doctor's appointment. Not as Roman Maxwell the billionaire, but just as someone who cares. Sit in those uncomfortable waiting room chairs. Listen to the doctor explain his condition without trying to throw money at better doctors or experimental treatments. Learn what his normal looks like before you try to improve it. When's the next appointment? Thursday, 2 p.m., with Dr. Kim, his pulmonologist. But Roman, she fixed him with a stare that had backed down difficult doctors and stubborn insurance representatives. If you make promises to him that you don't keep, if you raise his hopes and then disappear, I will make sure you never see him again. Legal team or no legal team? Are we clear? Crystal, Roman said quietly. Can I meet him properly? Now? Just as someone Mom knows, nothing more until you decide otherwise. Mia considered this, weighing risks against the possibility of giving Arlo something she'd never been able to provide, a father, however complicated that might be. You can meet him, but you follow my lead, and if he gets overwhelmed or upset, you leave immediately. Roman knocked on the examination room door, waiting for permission despite owning the entire wing. It was a small gesture, but Mia noticed it, filing it away with all the other small things that would eventually add up to trust or disappointment. Come in, Dr. Banerjee called, and they entered to find Arlo building something elaborate. With tongue depressors and medical tape, the dragon book open beside him for reference. Arlo, Mia said gently, this is Roman. He's someone Mommy knew before you were born. He wanted to meet you. Arlo looked up with those impossibly familiar eyes, studying Roman with the direct curiosity only children possessed. You're the man from the lobby, the one who talks fancy. Roman laughed, genuine surprise breaking through his nervousness. I suppose I do talk fancy sometimes. Is that good or bad? Depends, Arlo said seriously, returning to his construction. Can you make paper airplanes? Yes, actually. I can. Show me. And just like that, the billionaire who'd addressed crowds of investors found himself being tested by a 6-year-old's standards. Roman took a piece of paper from the notepad on the counter, his fingers moving with practiced precision. But instead of a basic dart, he created something more complex. Wings that curved, a tail that provided stability. That's different, Arlo observed, watching intently. Different can be good, Roman said, holding out the plane. Want to test it? They took turns flying it around the room, Arlo shrieking with delight when it looped-de-looped before landing perfectly on the examination table. Dr. Banerjee watched with amusement while Mia observed every interaction, cataloguing Roman's careful maintenance of physical distance, his instinct to let Arlo lead the conversation. Are you sick too? Arlo asked suddenly. Is that why you're at the hospital? No, I'm not sick. I was here for the new wing opening, the one with your daughter's name. We heard about her. I'm sorry she died. The room went still. Mia started to intervene, but Roman held up a subtle hand. Thank you, he said simply. That's very kind of you to say. Was she sick like me, with breathing problems? Yes, Roman said softly. She had breathing problems too. Arlo considered this, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a second golden star sticker, one he'd apparently negotiated from Dr. Banerjee earlier. He peeled it carefully and held it out to Roman. For being sad but still being nice, he explained matter-of-factly. Roman accepted the sticker with the reverence usually reserved for $1,000,000 contracts, placing it on his suit jacket without hesitation. Thank you. This is the nicest gift anyone's given me in a very long time. They continued playing with paper airplanes, Arlo teaching Roman his own technique while Roman showed him how to add small modifications for distance versus acrobatics. The conversation flowed naturally, about school, about rockets, Arlo's current obsession, about why hospitals always smelled weird. When Arlo's energy began to flag, the aftermath of his episode catching up, Roman was the first to notice, suggesting they save more airplane designs for another time. It was another small thing, but Mia noted it. He wasn't pushing for more time, wasn't trying to make the moment bigger than it should be. Dr. Banerjee returned with discharge papers and a treatment plan, her professional demeanor, a welcome return to normalcy after the charged emotions of the past hour. She explained the adjustments to Arlo's medication regimen, the importance of avoiding certain triggers, and scheduled a follow-up with Dr. Kim. I'll also page Dr. Qureshi from our psychiatric department, she said to Mia, though her eyes flickered briefly to Roman. Not for Arlo. He's handling his condition remarkably well, but we offer family counseling for parents dealing with chronic pediatric conditions. It can be helpful to have someone to talk through the stress with. Mia recognized the subtle offering, a neutral space to process whatever was happening with Roman's reappearance. Thank you. That might be good. Mr. Maxwell, Dr. Banerjee addressed Roman directly. The Foundation representatives were looking for you earlier. Should I tell them where to find you? No, Roman said quietly. I'll catch up with them later. This is more important. He moved toward the door, understanding his time was up without being told. But before leaving, he turned back to Arlo. It was really nice meeting you, Arlo. Maybe I'll see you again sometime? Arlo looked to his mother first. Another thing Roman noticed and filed away. When Mia gave a small nod, Arlo smiled. You could come to my doctor's appointment on Thursday. It's boring, but you could bring more paper for airplanes. I'd like that, Roman said, his voice thick. If your mom says it's okay. After he left, Arlo turned to Mia with that penetrating look that sometimes made her wonder if he was 6 or 60. He's my dad, isn't he? The truth, always the truth. Yes, baby, he is. Why didn't he know about me? Because he left before I could tell him. But he knows now. Arlo absorbed this, processing it with the same matter-of-fact acceptance he'd shown toward his medical condition. Is he going to stay? I don't know, Mia admitted. We're going to take it slow and see what happens. Is that okay? Okay, Arlo said, then added, he seems nice. Sad, but nice. As they prepared to leave, finally heading home after what felt like the longest day of Mia's life, she received another text from Roman. Thank you. Thursday, 2 p.m. I'll be there. No fancy talk, just paper airplanes. And Mia, he's extraordinary. You did that. You gave him that strength, that kindness. Thank you for letting me see it, even if just for today. She didn't respond, but something in her chest loosened slightly. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever. But perhaps the possibility of something new, built not on what was lost, but on what Arlo needed now. If you were in Mia's shoes, would you let him earn a seat, or close the door? Tell me in the comments. And if this chapter has you locked in, hit subscribe to Mr. Steele Rich Stories. Be here for how this choice unfolds. The hospital parking garage felt like a neutral zone as Mia buckled Arlo into his booster seat, the concrete walls echoing with the distant sounds of car doors and footsteps. Roman stood by the adjacent pillar, having followed them at a respectful distance. His phone buzzing insistently in his pocket, calls he continued to ignore. You really didn't know, Mia said suddenly. Not a question but a statement. She'd watched him with Arlo, seen the genuine shock that couldn't be faked, the way he'd studied their son's face, like he was memorizing every detail he'd missed. I didn't know, Roman confirmed, his voice raw. But that doesn't absolve me. I should have been there to know. Should have stayed, should have fought, should have chosen differently. He paused, running a hand through his hair in a gesture she remembered from when he was stressed about gallery showings. I can't change leaving, Mia, but I can choose what happens next. And what are you choosing? She asked, one hand on her car door, ready to leave if his answer disappointed. Roman pulled out his phone, showing her the 17 missed calls from various board members, the urgent texts about publicity opportunities, interview requests from major networks about the wing dedication. Then, deliberately, he powered it off completely. I'm choosing time over optics. Choosing to learn who Arlo is over what the board wants me to be. They'll be furious. A PR nightmare, they'll call it. The absent billionaire father suddenly appearing will raise questions, create narratives they can't control. I don't care anymore. It's not that simple, Mia protested. You can't just decide to upend your life. You did, Roman interrupted gently. 7 years ago, you upended everything to raise him alone. Built a life from scratch while I was playing corporate games. The least I can do is risk some bored disapproval to be part of his life now. Arlo had fallen asleep in his car seat, the stress of the day finally catching up. His small hand clutched the dragon book Dr. Banerjee had let him keep, his breathing deep and even, such a contrast to just hours ago. A probationary chance, Mia said finally, the words feeling like stepping off a cliff. 3 months. You show up when you say you will, you follow my rules, you put Arlo's needs first. No grand gestures, no trying to buy your way into his life, no using him for public relations rehabilitation. What about my money? I want to help with medical bills with... We'll discuss that in family therapy. Mia cut him off. Financial support is complicated. It comes with strings, even when you don't mean it to. We need professional guidance to navigate it without creating dependency or resentment. Roman nodded slowly. You've thought this through. I've had 7 years to think about what I'd do if you ever came back, she admitted. Though I never imagined it would be like this, in a hospital you built, with our son between us. Our son, Roman repeated, as if testing the words. I have a son. You have a son who needs consistency, Mia corrected, who's been through more medical procedures than most adults, who asks hard questions and deserves honest answers, who gives star stickers to sad strangers because I taught him empathy matters more than everything else. You taught him well. I taught him what I knew, but there are things I can't teach him, things about being a man, about his heritage, about the parts of himself that come from you. Maybe that's worth the risk of letting you try. Roman stepped closer, still maintaining careful distance but close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of choices made and unmade. 3 months, he agreed. Whatever rules you set, whatever boundaries you need. I'll earn this second chance, or accept losing it. But Mia, he paused, seeming to gather courage. I need you to know that leaving you was the worst decision of my life. Not because of Arlo, not because of what I missed, but because I loved you and chose fear instead. That's my burden to carry, not yours to forgive. They sat in Mia's car with the engine running for heat, Arlo still sleeping in the back, as they worked out the practical details on a napkin from the hospital coffee shop. The absurdity of planning their son's future on a coffee-stained napkin wasn't lost on either of them, but it felt appropriately humble after years of grand failures. Phone call tomorrow evening, Mia wrote in her careful handwriting. After dinner, before bed. 7:30, 5 minutes maximum to start. Just to say goodnight? Roman asked. To establish a routine. Arlo thrives on predictability. It helps with his anxiety about his condition. If you're going to be part of his life, it starts with being reliable in small ways. Roman nodded, adding his own note. Saturday afternoon visit. Public place? The park near our house has a playground he loves. 2 hours. I'll be there the whole time. You can push him on swings. Maybe bring those paper airplane designs you mentioned. They exchanged schedules, Roman photographing Arlo's medical appointment list, school, calendar, and the carefully maintained routine that kept his health stable. Mia wrote down Roman's direct number. Not his assistant's, not his office, line, but the personal cell only a handful of people had access to. Family therapy, Mia continued, writing the next item. Dr. Qureshi that Dr. Banerjee mentioned, or someone she recommends. Weekly sessions, both of us, before we even consider introducing the idea of you as his father. He already knows, Roman pointed out. He asked you directly. Knowing and understanding are different things. He needs professional support to process this, and frankly, so do we. 7 years of hurt doesn't just disappear because you want to do better now. Roman accepted this without argument, adding his own condition. Medical expenses. I want to set up a trust specifically for Arlo's healthcare. Not money you have to ask for or justify, just coverage for everything he needs. Through the therapy sessions, Mia insisted. We discuss it there first. Make sure it's structured in a way that gives him security without making me dependent on your continued goodwill. My continued goodwill? Roman's voice hurt. You think I'd use our son's medical needs as leverage? I think you left once when things got complicated, Mia said bluntly. I can't afford to assume you won't leave again. I need legal protection, not just promises. The truth of it sat heavy between them. Roman folded the napkin carefully, as if it were a precious document rather than a hastily scrawled agreement. School information, he said quietly. I'd like to know his teachers' names, what he's studying, when parent conferences are. Not to attend. Not yet, just to know. Mia pulled up the school portal on her phone, sharing the login information. He's in 1st grade, Mrs. Patterson. He's advanced in reading, struggles a bit with math but not concerningly so. I love science, especially anything about space. Space. Roman smiled slightly. I used to paint nebulas when I couldn't sleep. Maybe that's where he gets it. Maybe, Mia allowed, then caught herself. But don't do that. Don't try to find yourself in him to justify your place. He's his own person, not a collection of inherited traits. Love him for who he is, not for what parts of you he might carry. You're right, Roman said. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find my footing here. Saturday, Mia said, softening slightly. Start with Saturday. Show up on time, follow his lead. Don't promise anything you're not certain you can deliver. That's your footing. Roman's phone, even powered off, seemed to pulse with ignored urgency in his pocket. When he finally turned it back on to save Mia's number, it exploded with notifications. The one that caught his eye was from Tessa Armitage, the board chair who'd orchestrated his return 7 years ago. Optics are critical. The photographer caught you with a woman and child. Exit quietly before speculation begins. We need to control this narrative. He showed the message to Mia, who read it with a bitter smile. The machine that took you away wants you back. They never stopped wanting control, Roman said, typing a response. 7 years, and they still think they own me because they own shares. His reply was brief, unavailable for the rest of the day. Family emergency. Will address concerns Monday. The response was immediate. There is no family emergency in your file. Your mother is well. Explain. Roman looked at Arlo sleeping, at Mia watching him with guarded hope, at the life he'd missed and the chance he'd been given. He typed, "File is outdated. Situation handled. Monday, Tessa." Then he blocked her number. "You can't block the board chair," Mia said, though there was something like approval in her voice. "Watch me," Roman said, then proceeded to block 6 more board members, who were flooding his phone with variations of the same demand. They want me to be their puppet CEO, the grieving father who channels his loss into acceptable charity. Finding out I have a living son, one I abandoned before he was born, that doesn't fit their narrative. They'll make your life hell. My life's been hell for 7 years, Roman said simply. Comfortable hell, profitable hell, but hell nonetheless. At least now I'm choosing my battles. Another message slipped through before he could block it. This one from the PR director. 3 reporters have photos of you in the parking garage with the woman. If this is what it looks like, we need to get ahead of it. Suggestion, claim she's a beneficiary of the charity, nothing more. Beneficiary, Mia laughed, but it was sharp-edged. Is that what we are? No, Roman said firmly, deleting the message. You're the woman I loved and left. He's my son I didn't know existed. And if they can't handle that truth, then maybe it's time for new board members. You can't fight them all, Roman. Not if you want to keep your position, keep the resources to help Arlo. I'm not fighting them, Roman said, pocketing his phone. I'm just choosing not to let them choose for me anymore. First visible choice against their machine, as you put it. If they fire me, I've got enough personal wealth to ensure Arlo never wants for anything. If they don't, then they'll learn to accept that I'm done being controlled. A security guard walked by their car, did a double take at seeing Roman. Maxwell in the parking garage, but moved on when Roman waved him away. The small moment of recognition reminded them both that privacy would be a challenge going forward. They'll dig into your life, Roman warned. Once they know about Arlo, about you, they'll investigate everything. Your work history, your finances, any relationship you've had since. There haven't been any relationships, Mia cut him off. Between Arlo's health and work, and just surviving, dating hasn't exactly been a priority. Something shifted in Roman's expression at this admission, but before he could respond, Arlo stirred in the back seat. "Mummy, are we home?" "Almost, baby. Just talking to Roman for a minute." Arlo blinked sleepily, then smiled at Roman through the window. "Bye, airplane man. See you Thursday." "Thursday," Roman promised, stepping back from the car. 2 p.m. I'll bring paper. As Mia drove away, Roman stood in the empty parking space, his phone buzzing with new threats and demands. He looked at the hospital he'd built, the wing he'd dedicated to a daughter who'd lived only 3 days, then thought about the son who'd lived 6 years without him. The machine wanted him back, wanted him controlled, wanted the narrative they'd crafted to remain intact. But for the first time in 7 years, Roman Maxwell was choosing something else. Choosing the messy, complicated, uncertain path of earning his place in a life he'd walked away from. The board could fire him, the media could crucify him, the carefully constructed image could crumble. None of it mattered as much as the promise of Thursday at 2 p.m. bringing paper for airplanes to a boy who gave star stickers to sad strangers. The blog post went live at 6:47 a.m., just as Mia was measuring out Arlo's morning medication. Her phone buzzed with a text from her co-worker. "Jessica, is this you?" Followed by a link to Celebrity Whispers, a gossip site that fed on speculation and blurry photographs. The headline screamed in bold letters, "Billionaire's Secret?" Roman Maxwell spotted with mystery mom and child at hospital dedication. Below it, 3 photos. Mia pressed against the emergency room wall with Arlo, Roman's face frozen in recognition across the lobby. And, worst of all, a zoomed shot of them in the parking garage, close enough that it looked intimate, damning enough that it invited questions. The article was pure conjecture dressed as journalism. Sources close to Maxwell Industries report that CEO Roman Maxwell spent over 2 hours with an unidentified woman and young boy following yesterday's dedication of the Elodie Maxwell Children's Wing. The nature of their relationship remains unclear, but Maxwell's visible emotional response has sparked speculation. Could the bachelor billionaire have a secret family? Our investigation continues. Mia's hands shook as she read, the medicine cup sloshing dangerously. This was exactly what she'd feared. Their private crisis becoming public entertainment, Arlo's medical emergency transformed into clickbait, her carefully protected anonymity shattered by a telephoto lens and hungry speculation. "Mummy, you're spilling," Arlo said, pointing to the drops of medication on the counter. She steadied herself, administered his dose with practiced calm despite the chaos in her head, got him settled with breakfast and cartoons. Then she locked herself in the bathroom and read the article 3 more times, each pass making her angrier. The comments section was worse. Strangers dissecting her appearance. "She looks tired, definitely a struggling single mom," one wrote. Others speculated about Arlo's condition. "Kid looks sick. Maybe that's the connection to the children's hospital." Some were cruel. Gold digger spotted a billionaire and made her move. Others are sympathetic. Let the man have privacy. Maybe she's just a friend. None of them knew the truth, but all of them felt entitled to guess. By 7:15, her phone was ringing. Roman's name flashed on the screen. "I saw it," she said instead of hello. "Please tell me you didn't orchestrate this for publicity." "God, no." "Mia, I'm so sorry. I had a security sweep for photographers, but someone must have gotten past them. I'm already working on..." "Working on what?" "The damage is done. Our faces are on the internet. People are digging into my life, speculating about Arlo, turning our worst day into their morning entertainment. I know, I'm handling it." "You can't handle this," Mia said, her voice rising despite her attempt to stay quiet with Arlo in the next room. "This is exactly why I wanted boundaries. This is why I don't trust this world you live in. Everything becomes content. Everything becomes narrative, and we're just people trying to survive." "Give me today," Roman said urgently. "Just today to fix this before you make any decisions. Please." Mia looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, exhausted, frightened, protective. The woman in that blurry photo looked vulnerable in ways she'd never wanted the world to see. "One day," she said finally. "But Roman, if this gets worse, if reporters show up at Arlo's school or our house, if my job gets affected because suddenly I'm mystery mom, I'm done. You can send child support through lawyers, but you don't get access to him. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear. I'll call you by noon with an update." After hanging up, Mia sat on the closed toilet lid, head in her hands, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake, letting Roman back into their lives. Privacy had been her shield, anonymity her protection. Now both were compromised by a choice she'd made in a moment of hope. Roman's office had never felt smaller despite its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. His PR director, Vincent Hayes, sat across from him with a tablet full of opportunities, interview requests from major networks, offers for exclusive stories, suggestions for how to shape the narrative. "Good Morning America wants you tomorrow," Vincent said, scrolling through options. "We could control the message, introduce the woman, Mia, you said her name was, on our terms. Make it a heartwarming reunion story." No," Roman said flatly. "The View is offering a full segment. You could discuss single parenthood, healthcare costs, tie it back to the Foundation's mission." "No, Roman, you don't understand. The story is already out there. If we don't define it, someone else will. Let me at least issue a statement confirming the basics, get ahead of the speculation." "The statement is, no comment on my personal life," Roman said firmly. "Contact Celebrity Whispers and their parent company. I want that article taken down within the hour." Vincent looked up sharply. "On what grounds?" The photos were taken in a public space. We have no legal basis. Then buy the parent company, Roman interrupted. Or threaten to pull all Maxwell Industries advertising from their entire network. I don't care what it costs. That article disappears, and no publication under their umbrella touches this story again. That's aggressive. It'll raise more questions. Let it. Issue one statement. Mr. Maxwell's personal life remains private. He will not be commenting on recent speculation and requests that the media respect the privacy of all individuals involved, particularly minors. Nothing else. No confirmation, no denial, no explanation. Vincent made notes, clearly uncomfortable. The board won't like this approach. Tessa's already called twice this morning wanting to discuss crisis management. Tell Tessa, I'm managing the crisis by protecting the people involved. If she has concerns, she can wait until Monday like everyone else. There's also the Henderson interview. You were supposed to do Bloomberg at 11 about the third quarter earnings. Should I postpone? Roman checked his watch. The interview would conflict with his promised noon update to Mia. Cancel it. Reschedule for next week. Roman, this is becoming a pattern. You've cancelled or postponed 6 major commitments in the last 18 hours. And I'll cancel 6 more if I have to, Roman said, standing to signal the meeting was over. My priorities have shifted. The company will survive without me for a few days while I handle what actually matters. After Vincent left, clearly disturbed by his boss's departure from protocol, Roman made 3 more calls. The first to Celebrity Whisper's editor-in-chief, explaining in terms that couldn't be misunderstood what would happen if the article remained live. The second to his head of security, demanding a full investigation into how photographers had breached hospital grounds. The third to his lawyer, instructing him to prepare cease and desist letters for any publication that attempted to identify or photograph Mia or Arlo without permission. By 11:30, the article was gone, replaced by a generic error message. By 11:45, 3 other gossip sites had pulled similar speculative pieces. It wasn't perfect. Screenshots still circulated on social media forums, still buzzed with theories, but the official channels had been shut down. At exactly noon, he called Mia. The article's down, he said without preamble. I've got legal teams monitoring for any attempts to republish. Security is reviewing hospital footage to identify the photographer, and I've issued a blanket no comment on anything involving you or Arlo. Silence on her end. Then, what did it cost? Does it matter? Yes, because I need to know if this protection is sustainable or just a temporary show of power that'll evaporate when you get bored. Roman leaned back in his chair, looking out at the city he'd conquered while losing everything that mattered. I threatened to buy their parent company and destroy their advertising revenue. It cost nothing financially and everything professionally. They'll hate me now, see me as a bully. But they'll also think twice before publishing anything about you again. And when the next outlet posts something, and the one after that, you can't threaten the entire media industry. Watch me try, Roman said quietly. Mia, I know you don't trust this yet. I know every protective instinct you have is screaming to shut me out, but I meant what I said. I choose time over optics. If that means burning bridges with every gossip columnist in the country, so be it. Another pause, longer this time. Arlo wants to talk to you tonight. 7:30, like we agreed. 5 minutes. It wasn't forgiveness, wasn't even approval, but it was permission to continue, and right now, that was enough. The chicken noodle soup came from a can, heated in a pot that had seen better days, but it filled Mia's small kitchen with the illusion of comfort. Arlo sat at the table coloring a picture of rockets, his nebulizer treatment scheduled for after dinner. It was their routine, eat, treat, bath, bed, the careful rhythm that kept his condition stable and Mia's anxiety manageable. The knock at the door came at 6:45, 15 minutes earlier than Roman's scheduled call time. Mia checked the peephole, surprised to find him standing on her porch holding a paper grocery bag and looking decidedly uncomfortable in jeans and a sweater instead of his usual tailored suits. "You're early," she said, opening the door but not moving aside to let him in. I know, I'm sorry. I brought some things for Arlo. Books about space, and this telescope I saw that's designed for kids his age. If that's okay. If it's not, I'll take them back. You can't just show up with expensive gifts. It's not expensive, Roman interrupted. I mean, it is, but it's not. I'm not trying to buy anything. I just saw them and thought he'd like them, and I didn't know the protocol for... He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. I'm terrible at this. Tell me the rules, and I'll follow them. Mia looked at him, genuinely flustered, so different from the composed billionaire of yesterday, and made a decision that probably wasn't wise. You can come in for dinner. Soup from a can and grocery store bread. Then you can give Arlo the gifts and help with his treatment if you want to learn. But you leave before bedtime, because that's our routine, and I'm not changing it yet. Relief washed over Roman's face as he stepped inside. The house was small, probably smaller than his office, filled with mismatched furniture and evidence of life lived paycheck to paycheck. But it was clean, warm, and obviously full of love. Photos of Arlo covered the refrigerator, his artwork decorated the walls, and everything was organized with the same careful efficiency Mia brought to the hospital. Airplane man. Arlo called from the table, immediately abandoning his coloring. Did you bring the paper? Even better, Roman said, kneeling to Arlo's level and unpacking the bag. A book about all the different kinds of airplanes, and one about rockets that can fly even higher. While Arlo pored over his new treasures, Roman helped Mia set the table, accepting the canned soup without comment. They ate together, the conversation light and careful. Arlo talking about school, Mia asking Roman safe. Questions about the hospital wing, everyone avoiding the heavy topics lurking just beneath the surface. After dinner, Mia set up the nebulizer, and Roman watched as she went through the routine with practiced efficiency. Want to learn? She asked, surprising herself with the offer. For the next 20 minutes she taught him how to prepare the medication, clean the equipment, and help Arlo position the mask comfortably. Roman's hands shook slightly as he measured the dosage under her supervision, afraid of making a mistake that could hurt his son. You're doing fine, Mia said quietly. It's scary at first, but you'll learn. How often does he need this? Twice daily on good days. More during episodes. We've been in the emergency room 14 times in the past year. Roman's jaw tightened. 14 times. It's better than the year before. That was 23. We're learning his triggers, managing it better. While Arlo sat with the nebulizer humming, Roman's phone began ringing. He glanced at it, then silenced it without answering. You can take that, Mia said. It's just the board. They want to discuss an investor call scheduled for 8 o'clock tonight. That's important, isn't it? Not as important as this, Roman said simply, watching Arlo breathe in his medication. The phone rang again. Again, he declined it. By the third call, Mia took the phone from him and checked the screen. Tessa Armitage, flashing urgently. She's persistent. She wants me to choose the company over everything else. I did that for 7 years. I'm done. After Roman left, reluctantly, at exactly 8 p.m. as Mia had stipulated, his phone exploded with messages. The investor call had gone ahead without him, and apparently it had been a disaster. The lead investor, Harrison Cole, had asked pointed questions about Maxwell's commitment to the company, his recent erratic behavior, and whether his personal complications would affect fourth-quarter projections. Tessa's voicemail was ice cold. Your absence tonight cost us the Cole investment. $40 million gone because you couldn't be bothered to show up. Emergency board meeting, my office, 7 a.m. tomorrow. Non-negotiable. The email that followed was worse. Copied to the entire board. Roman's recent distractions have created a crisis of confidence among our major donors and investors. We must address whether his personal complications are compatible with his leadership role. Discussion tomorrow will include potential alternatives to the current management structure. Translation, they were considering removing him as CEO. Vincent Hayes called at 10 p.m., his voice tight with stress. The Cole situation is bad, but it gets worse. 3 other major donors are reconsidering their commitments to the children's wing. Not because of anything concrete, just the optics of instability. Tessa's been working the phones, suggesting your judgment is compromised. Let me guess, Roman said tiredly. She's positioning herself or her preferred candidate as the stable alternative. Jeremy Richardson. He's been kissing up to the board for months, waiting for an opening. Roman thought about the emergency room, about learning to measure medication with shaking hands, about Arlo's star sticker still on his jacket. He thought about 7 years of choosing what the board wanted, what investors expected, what optics demanded. Let them meet, he said finally. Let Tessa make her case. I'll be there at 7 a.m. with my own proposal, which is that I'm done letting them dictate my priorities. If they want Richardson, they can have him. But they should know what they're getting. Someone who'll smile for cameras and ignore anything that doesn't fit the narrative. Is that really what the Elodie Maxwell Children's Wing should represent? You're playing with fire, Roman. They could actually do it, vote you out, strip your authority, reduce you to a figurehead. I know, but I'm standing with Mia and Arlo anyway. If that costs me the company, at least I'll have chosen the right thing this time. After hanging up, Roman sat in his penthouse apartment, all minimalist, design and expensive emptiness, and drafted his response to the board. Not defensive, not apologetic, but clear about his new definition of power. Power wasn't controlling narratives or managing optics. It was showing up for the 7:30 p.m. phone call with a 6-year-old, learning nebulizer protocols, choosing soup from a can over investor millions. His old life had been powerful in ways that meant nothing. His new life, still fragile and uncertain, was powerful in ways that might actually matter. At 7:28 p.m., he called Mia's number. Arlo answered, breathless with excitement. Airplane man, guess what? Mom helped me build the telescope, and I saw the moon. It has spots on it. Those are called craters, Roman said, his chest tight with something that felt like joy. Want me to tell you about how they got there? For exactly 5 minutes, he told his son about meteor impacts and lunar geology, about astronauts who'd walked on that spotted surface. Mia stayed silent in the background, but he could hear her moving around, could feel her listening, evaluating, deciding whether he deserved another chance tomorrow. When the 5 minutes were up, Arlo said goodnight without complaint, already learning the boundaries that made trust possible. Same time tomorrow? Roman asked Mia after Arlo handed her the phone. If you're still standing with us after your board meeting, Mia said. I saw the news alerts. They're circling. Let them circle. I'll talk to you tomorrow night. Is a blurred photo enough to make you pull back or push for better boundaries? Dr. Qureshi's office was deliberately calming. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs. That didn't look clinical. A box of tissues placed strategically, but not obviously. Mia had been here twice before, solo sessions to process the sudden reappearance of Roman in their lives before they attempted joint therapy. Tell me about the fear, Dr. Qureshi said gently, her pen poised above. Her notepad but not writing yet, giving Mia space to find the words. I'm afraid I'm rewriting old pain, Mia admitted, pulling her sleeves over her hands the way she did when feeling vulnerable. 7 years ago, I loved him completely, believed every promise, built my future around us. Then he vanished, and I had to rebuild everything from ruins while pregnant and alone. And now? Now he's back, saying the right things, showing up when he says he will. But what if this is just temporary guilt? What if once the novelty wears off, once being a father to a sick kid becomes inconvenient instead of redemptive, he disappears again? Dr. Qureshi nodded, making a small note. You're protecting yourself. That's healthy. But I notice you keep saying, I. What about Arlo? Mia's eyes filled. That's the real fear. I survived Roman leaving once. I was an adult. I had choices. I could process the betrayal and move forward. But Arlo, her voice cracked. Arlo is 6. He gives star stickers to sad strangers because I taught him that kindness matters. He asks hard questions and deserves honest answers. If Roman becomes important to him and then leaves, it won't just break his heart. It'll teach him that people who say they love you can't be trusted. You're protecting his soft places, Dr. Qureshi observed. He has so many of them, Mia whispered. His lungs are fragile. His trust is fragile. His understanding of family is built on just the two of us. Every medical procedure, every emergency room visit, every nebulizer treatment. I've been the constant. Me, not anyone else. And now I'm supposed to let Roman in, let him become someone Arlo depends on when I don't know if he'll stay. What would make you know? Mia thought about this, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. Time, consistency, proof that when choosing gets hard, he picks us anyway. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts, just showing up, being boring, being reliable when it's inconvenient. And if he proves that, then maybe I can stop waiting for him to leave. Maybe Arlo can have a father who doesn't just exist in explanation, but in presence. Maybe we can be something other than broken. Dr. Qureshi leaned forward slightly. Mia, you're not broken. You're a mother who built a life from nothing, who advocates fiercely for her son, who teaches him kindness while navigating systems designed to exhaust you. That's not broken. That's extraordinary. It doesn't feel extraordinary. It feels like barely surviving most days, which is exactly why you deserve support. Why Arlo deserves to know his father, if his father can show up properly. But you're right to move slowly, to demand proof before trust. That's not fear controlling you. That's wisdom protecting what you've built. Roman sat in the same chair Mia had occupied an hour earlier, his posture more rigid, his hands clasped tightly, as if physically holding himself together. The board meeting didn't go well, he said, answering Dr. Qureshi's opening question about his week. They've put me on probationary status. Fancy corporate speak for, one more mistake and you're out. Jeremy Richardson is being positioned as my replacement if I can't prove my commitment to the company. How does that make you feel? Honestly? Relieved. Roman looked surprised by his own answer. For 7 years I've been running that company, making decisions based on what would please investors, what would satisfy the board, and what would maintain the image they wanted. And I was miserable. Successful, powerful, absolutely miserable. What's different now? I know what I'm working toward. Before, it was just accumulation. More money, more influence, more control. But control over what? A company that would replace me the second I became inconvenient? A life that looked impressive but felt hollow? Dr. Qureshi made a note. You're using past tense. What I was working toward. What are you working toward now? Being someone Arlo can count on. Being someone Mia doesn't have to fear will disappear. But I don't know how to do that without controlling the outcome, without guarantees that if I do X and Y, then Z will happen. Relationships don't work like business deals. I'm learning that, Roman said wryly. Mia won't give me a timeline for trust, won't accept money without therapeutic oversight, won't let me fix problems with resources. Everything I'm used to leveraging, wealth, influence, power, none of it matters to her. Does that frustrate you? It terrifies me, Roman admitted, because the only thing I can offer is myself, and historically, that hasn't been enough. I left. I chose corporate pressure over love. I missed 6 years of my son's life because I was too cowardly to fight for what mattered. Why would she trust that person? Are you still that person? Roman was quiet for a long moment. I want to say no. I want to believe I've changed. But change isn't declared, is it? It's demonstrated. I can't control whether Mia forgives me or when Arlo accepts me as his father. I can only control my choices, day by day, moment by moment. And what are you choosing? Boring heroism, as Mia calls it. Showing up for the 7:30 p.m. phone calls even when I'm exhausted. Learning medical terminology and nebulizer protocols. Cancelling important meetings to be at appointments. It's not dramatic. It's not the kind of thing that makes headlines. But it's the only thing that actually matters. That's a profound shift from someone who built a career on headlines and drama. That career cost me everything real, Roman said quietly. I won't make that mistake again. Even if it costs me the company, even if I lose the power and influence, I'm choosing presence over optics, routine over recognition, time over everything else. The email arrived at 11 p.m. on Wednesday night, 2 days before Arlo's scheduled appointment with Dr. Kim. Subject line: exclusive opportunity, National Healthcare Panel. Vincent Hayes had written it personally. Roman, this is exactly what we need to rehabilitate your image with the board. CNN is hosting a panel on pediatric healthcare reform Friday at 2 p.m. You'd be featured alongside the Surgeon General, 2 senators, and the head of the National Children's Hospital Association. It's perfect timing. Shows your commitment to the cause, lets you discuss the wing without addressing personal speculation. The board is already impressed I secured this. Please confirm your participation. Roman stared at the email, then checked his calendar. Friday, 2 p.m. Arlo's pulmonology appointment with Dr. Kim. The appointment Mia had specifically invited him to attend, the one he'd promised he'd be at 3 weeks ago. The panel would be broadcast nationally, seen by millions, positioning him as a serious healthcare advocate. It would satisfy the board, impress investors, and prove his commitment to the company's mission. Missing it would be seen as another distraction, more evidence that his personal life was compromising his professional judgment. The appointment would be seen by 3 people: Mia, Arlo, and Dr. Kim. It would satisfy no one but them, impress no one important, prove nothing, except that he could keep a small promise to a 6-year-old. He typed 2 emails. The first to Vincent: decline the panel. I have a prior commitment I won't break. Offer to do a written interview instead, but my Friday afternoon is non-negotiable. The second to Mia: still confirmed for Friday 2 p.m. Is there anything I should prepare or questions I should have ready for Dr. Kim? Vincent called within 5 minutes, his voice strained. Roman, you don't understand what you're turning down. This is national television, the kind of platform most CEOs would kill for. I understand perfectly. I'm choosing my son's doctor's appointment over a TV appearance. Tell the board, don't tell them. I don't care. My answer is no. They'll see this as final proof that you're not fit to lead. Then they can vote me out Monday. But I'm not cancelling on Arlo. Thursday morning, Roman showed up at Mia's house at 6 a.m. before she'd even left for her early shift at the restaurant. She answered the door in her work uniform, surprised to find him holding 2 coffee cups from the local shop she'd mentioned liking. You're not supposed to be here until tomorrow, she said, accepting the coffee anyway. I know. I wanted to ask what questions I should have ready for Dr. Kim, but I realized I should probably also know Arlo's full medical history, not just the parts I've witnessed. Do you have time to walk me through it before work? Mia studied him, this billionaire on her doorstep at dawn with coffee and questions, looking nothing like the man who'd once left without explanation. You really cancelled the CNN panel, she said. Not a question, a confirmation. How did you? Jessica sent me the announcement yesterday. Thought I'd want to see you talking about pediatric healthcare. When I didn't see your name this morning, I checked the updated panel list. The appointment is more important. It's just a routine checkup. Nothing dramatic, no cameras, no audience, just listening to Arlo's lungs and adjusting medication dosages. I know, Roman said simply. That's exactly why I need to be there. They sat at Mia's kitchen table, the same wobbly table where she'd eaten countless meals alone with Arlo, and she walked Roman through 6 years of medical history. The first respiratory episode at 6 months old, the hospitalization at 18 months, the diagnosis of reactive airway disease at 2 years. Each emergency room visit, each medication trial, each specialist consultation. She laid it all out while he took notes on his phone, asking questions that showed he was actually listening. Why does cold air trigger episodes? He asked. Dr. Kim thinks it's the sudden temperature change constricting his airways. We have a protocol now. Scarf over his mouth and nose, pre-treatment before going outside in winter. And the cat allergy. You mentioned that it affects him too. Not just cats, most animals with fur or feathers. We found out the hard way at a petting zoo. Had to leave Jeremy's birthday party early because Arlo couldn't breathe around the rabbits. Roman made another note. So no pets. No pets. Which breaks my heart because he asks for a dog constantly. But his health comes first. By the time Mia had to leave for work, Roman had 3 pages of notes and a dozen more questions for Dr. Kim. As she grabbed her keys, he stood awkwardly, clearly wanting to say something but uncertain how. "I can't rewind us," Mia said quietly, the words she'd been holding since her therapy session finally finding their way out. "I can't go back to the girl who trusted me completely, who believed in me forever, who didn't know that people could just leave. That version of me is gone, and honestly, I don't want her back. She was naive." "Mia, but," she continued, "I can watch what you choose now. Not what you promise or what you say you'll do. What you actually choose when it costs you something. You chose this appointment over national television. You chose learning nebulizer protocols over investor calls. You choose to show up at 6 a.m. with questions over sleeping in your probably very comfortable penthouse bed. Those aren't hard choices," Roman said. "They're obvious." They weren't obvious 7 years ago. They're not obvious to the board now, but they're becoming obvious to you. And that, she paused, gathering courage, that might be enough. Eventually, enough for what? For me to stop waiting for you to leave, for Arlo to call you Dad instead of Airplane Man. For us to be something other than the aftermath of your worst decision. Roman's eyes filled, but he didn't move closer, didn't try to turn the moment into something bigger than it was. "What do I call this? This thing we're building? Call it a possibility," Mia said. "Call it cautious closeness. Call it proof that people can choose better the second time if they're willing to put in the boring, consistent work." Friday at 1:45 p.m., Roman arrived at Dr. Kim's office 15 minutes early, carrying a folder of questions and wearing jeans instead of a suit. Mia was already there with Arlo, who lit up at seeing him. "You came early," Arlo said. "Mom said you might be busy." "I'm never too busy for this," Roman said, kneeling to Arlo's level. "Ready to hear what Dr. Kim says about those super lungs of yours?" Inside the examination room, Roman sat quietly while Dr. Kim conducted her assessment, but his questions afterward showed he'd done his homework. He understood the medication protocols, asked about long-term prognosis, wanted to know about new treatments being researched. This wasn't a celebrity appearance or a photo opportunity. This was a father learning to care for his son. Mia watched him, and something in her chest that had been locked tight for 7 years loosened just slightly. Not trust, not yet. But the possibility of trust, the beginning of belief that maybe, just maybe, this time he would stay. If this hits your heart, be part of our community. Tap subscribe to Mr. Steele Rich Stories and share this with someone who believes repair is possible. Comment, time over headlines, if you're with Mia on this. Saturday afternoon at Riverside Park arrived with perfect weather. The kind of autumn day where the air was crisp, but the sun provided warmth, leaves crunching underfoot in shades of amber and gold. Roman arrived 10 minutes early, as had become his pattern, carrying a backpack full of paper airplane supplies and a thermos of hot chocolate Mia had mentioned Arlo loved. Arlo spotted him immediately and came running, his small legs pumping with excitement. Roman's instinct was to scoop him up, but he caught himself, kneeling instead to Arlo's level, letting the boy choose the contact. Arlo didn't hesitate, throwing his arms around Roman's neck with the uncomplicated affection only children possessed. "I made 3 new airplane designs this week," Arlo announced proudly. "Want to see?" "Absolutely." "Show me everything." Mia watched from the bench, her coffee warming her hands, as Roman and Arlo spread out their paper collection on a picnic table. For 2 hours they folded and tested, adjusted wing angles and tail, configurations, and raced their creations across the open field. Other families played around them, fathers pushing daughters on swings, mothers helping sons navigate monkey bars, and for the first time, they looked like they belonged in that picture. When Arlo ran off to retrieve a plane that had sailed particularly far, Roman joined. Mia, on the bench, both of them watching their son chase paper through fallen leaves. "He laughs like you," Roman observed. "That full-body joy when something delights him." "He has your stubbornness," Mia countered. "Tried the same airplane fold 17 times last night until he got it perfect." They sat in comfortable silence, something that would have been impossible weeks ago. The anger that had defined their reunion had settled into something more complex. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of building something new from the rubble of what had been destroyed. "Mia," Roman said quietly, his eyes still on Arlo, "I need to say something, and I need you to really hear it." She tensed slightly but nodded. "I'm in this, not as a guest in Arlo's life, not as someone trying to make amends for past mistakes. I'm in this as a builder, someone who wants to construct something permanent with you both. I know I haven't earned that position yet, but I'm asking for the chance to earn it. To be a father, a partner, a constant, not perfect, but present." Mia turned to look at him fully, searching his face for any hint of performance or manipulation. She found only earnest hope and bone-deep commitment. "Then build," she said finally, her voice steady but not unkind. "Brick by brick, Roman. No shortcuts, no grand gestures that skip the hard parts. You build trust the same way you build anything that lasts, one careful choice at a time, day after day, until there's something solid enough to stand on." "Brick by brick," Roman repeated, as if committing the words to memory. "I can do that." Arlo came running back, breathless and triumphant, holding the rescued airplane above his head like a trophy. It flew forever. Did you see how far it went?" "We saw," they said in unison, then looked at each other with small smiles. The first truly shared moment of joy between them since Roman's return. That evening, after Arlo had been put to bed with his new favorite airplane beside his pillow, Roman lingered by the front door, not quite ready to leave the warmth of the small house that was becoming more home than his penthouse ever had been. "Thank you for today," he said, hands in his pockets, looking younger and more uncertain than a billionaire CEO should. "For letting me be part of it." Mia leaned against the doorframe, exhaustion and something softer playing across her features. Through the window behind her, the kitchen light cast a gentle glow, illuminating the life she'd built from nothing. The drawings on the refrigerator, the careful organization of medication bottles, the evidence of love in every corner. "He asked me tonight if you were going to be his real dad," she said quietly. "Not airplane man anymore, but dad." Roman's breath caught. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that being a real dad isn't about biology, it's about showing up. And that you've been showing up every single time you said you would. So if he wants to start calling you dad, I think you've earned that." The words hit Roman like an absolution he hadn't known he needed. His eyes filled, but he didn't look away, didn't hide the emotion. "I won't let him down," he whispered. "I won't let either of you down again." Mia stepped closer, bridging the careful distance they'd maintained. She took his hand, the first physical contact she'd initiated since his return, and held it gently, not romantically, but with quiet recognition of the journey they'd traveled. "I know," she said simply, "because if I thought you would, we wouldn't be here." She rose on her toes and pressed a kiss to his temple, brief but meaningful, a benediction and a beginning. When she pulled back, something had shifted between them, not healed completely, not returned to what was, but opened to what might be. "Same time next Saturday?" Roman asked, still holding her hand. "Same time next Saturday, and Tuesday's his school concert. Nothing fancy, just first graders singing off-key. But he asked if you'd come." "I'll be there." "Front row." "You don't have to sit in the front row. The middle is fine." "Front row," Roman insisted gently. "I've missed 6 years of off-key concerts. I'm not missing another minute." The door to their future wasn't flung wide open, and wasn't returned to the trusting innocence of 7 years ago. But it wasn't locked anymore either. It opened slowly, carefully, by choice rather than chance, and that made all the difference. The telescope and books were nice, but what mattered was Roman appearing at 6 a.m. with questions, staying for nebulizer treatments, cancelling investor calls for bedtime stories. Love isn't measured in dollars spent, but in moments invested. The daily phone calls, the doctor's appointments, the park Saturdays, these mundane commitments built the foundation that grand gestures never could. True repair happens in the unsexy work of consistency, in choosing presence when performance would be easier. Roman's first words were important, acknowledging his failure, refusing to make excuses. But words alone wouldn't have been enough. Mia had heard promises before. What changed the equation was Roman backing his apology with transformed behavior. He didn't just say he was sorry, he demonstrated it by prioritizing differently, choosing their needs over his comfort, showing up when it cost him professionally. Ownership means accepting consequences without resentment. Consistent action means proving change isn't temporary performance, but permanent realignment of priorities. The gossip blog invasion could have destroyed their fragile reconnection. Instead, it clarified what mattered. Not public perception or narrative control, but the private world they were building together. Mia's insistence on boundaries wasn't rejection, it was wisdom. She understood that healthy relationships need protected space to develop, that not everything meaningful needs to be explained or defended to outsiders. Roman learned that real power wasn't controlling what others thought, but protecting what actually mattered. The therapy sessions, the careful agreements, the deliberate slowness, all of it created space for authentic connection to develop without external pressure distorting it. These weren't abstract principles, but lived truths, tested in hospital waiting rooms and kitchen tables, proven in the choice between CNN panels and pulmonology appointments. Roman and Mia's story wasn't about perfect people making perfect choices. It was about broken people choosing repair over resentment, building over blaming, presence over performance. And Arlo, with his star stickers and paper airplanes, reminded them both that children don't need perfect parents. They need presence, ones who show up, tell the truth, and love them through the hard parts. Brick by brick, moment by moment, choice by choice. That's how families are built. Not in dramatic declarations, but in quiet consistency. Not in what we promise, but in what we prove. If this story gives you hope, join us. Real love isn't what happens in the highlight reel. It's what happens in the daily grind. The unsexy commitments. The choice to show up when walking away would be easier. At Mr. Steele Rich Stories, we tell those stories. The ones about repair and redemption, about second chances earned through consistent action, about ordinary people making extraordinary choices in their everyday lives. Tap subscribe to Mr. Steele Rich Stories and turn on that notification bell. Don't miss what's next. We've got more stories coming about people who refuse to let their worst moments define them, who chose rebuilding over bitterness, who proved that it's never too late to become who you should have been. Type subscribed in the comments so I can pin a few welcome notes and thank you personally for being part of this community. Your support means everything. It lets us keep telling stories that matter, stories that remind us all what's possible when we choose presence over performance. Like this video if it moved you, and share it with someone who's rebuilding brick by brick. Someone who needs to know that repair is possible, that trust can be earned back. That showing up consistently matters more than showing up spectacularly. We're building something here together, a community that believes in second chances, in the power of consistent choice, in the quiet heroism of showing up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing these stories matter. And thank you for letting us be part of your journey, whatever you're building in your own life. See you in the next story. Until then, remember, time over headlines, presence over performance, and brick by brick, we build what lasts.